Did you know that moments of solitude can be part of God's plan to prepare you for something extraordinary? In this video, we'll explore how isolation is not a punishment, but a divine tool to shape and strengthen His chosen ones. Drawing inspiration from C.S. Lewis's profound teachings, you'll learn how to transform loneliness into spiritual growth and discover your higher purpose. If you're seeking to deepen your faith and understand how God uses moments of solitude to prepare you for greater things, consider subscribing to this channel and turning on notifications. Here, you'll find weekly reflections and teachings that will inspire you to embrace God's plan for your life, even in the most challenging seasons. Join a community of believers dedicated to growing in faith and discovering the purpose behind every moment of isolation. Don't miss out on content designed to strengthen your spirit and illuminate your path. Many of us go through times when we feel disconnected and alone, as if we're walking through life without direction. These moments can feel heavy, but what if they're part of a greater plan? Just like Moses in the wilderness or Jesus during his preparation in the desert, your season of solitude might be a sign that God is molding you for something extraordinary. It's in these moments that faith is tested, resilience is built, and your divine purpose begins to take shape. In this video, we'll dive deep into 10 powerful ways God uses solitude as a tool to shape and prepare His chosen ones for a greater purpose. You'll discover how isolation is not meant to harm, but to refine and redirect your focus toward what truly matters. By exploring inspirational examples from Scripture, such as Moses, Jesus, and Elijah, we'll see how solitude becomes a transformative process of strengthening faith and clarifying purpose. We'll also discuss practical ways to embrace these seasons of loneliness, viewing them not as setbacks, but as essential steps in your spiritual journey. Through these insights, you'll learn to find peace, resilience, and a renewed sense of purpose in the quiet moments of life. God's chosen ones often find themselves walking through seasons of isolation. These moments, while challenging, are not punishments, but divine preparations for a higher calling. Isolation allows God to refine hearts, strip away distractions, and align individuals with His purpose. It's during these times of quiet that the most profound transformation occurs. The Bible offers countless examples of this truth. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before God called him through the burning bush. In those years of solitude, he was prepared to face Pharaoh and lead the Israelites to freedom. Similarly, Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness for 40 days, where he fasted and prayed before embarking on his public ministry. These moments of solitude equipped him to resist temptation and fulfill his mission. C.S. Lewis often reflected on the idea that solitude is a mark of a unique calling. In his writings, he described how those chosen for extraordinary purposes often feel set apart from the world. Their journey is different, and as a result, they may face loneliness and misunderstanding. But Lewis emphasized that this isolation is not without purpose. It's an opportunity to deepen faith, clarify goals, and grow closer to God. Isolation is also a reminder that the chosen are not meant to conform to the world, but to lead with a divine purpose. The path of leadership often involves walking alone for a time, not as punishment, but as preparation. It is in these seasons of solitude that God works most intimately, equipping His chosen ones with the strength and wisdom needed to fulfill their calling. So if you find yourself in a season of isolation, know that it is not meaningless. It is a mark of something greater, a sign that God is preparing you for an extraordinary purpose. Embrace this time, trusting that He is working within you for a mission beyond what you can imagine. Isolation is not a random occurrence for the chosen. It is a deliberate act of God to redirect focus and align the heart with His divine mission. During these moments of solitude, distractions are removed and attention is brought back to the essentials, our relationship with God and the fulfillment of His purpose for us. It is through isolation that God clears the noise and creates space for transformation. In relationships, whether romantic or platonic, connections can sometimes divert attention away from spiritual growth. While these relationships are valuable, they can occasionally become sources of distraction from the deeper work God wants to accomplish in our lives. In solitude, we are invited to examine our priorities, identify what truly matters, and center our lives around God's plans. C.S. Lewis often explored this concept, emphasizing that solitude creates the perfect conditions for God to shape our character. In his works, Lewis pointed out that the busyness and distractions of life frequently pull us away from our spiritual path. He believed that it is in moments of quiet isolation that God's voice becomes clearer, leading to breakthroughs in understanding and spiritual renewal. The Bible offers powerful examples of how isolation serves this divine purpose. Elijah, for instance, fled into the wilderness overwhelmed by fear and exhaustion. In his solitude, God met him not with thunder or fire, but with a gentle whisper, renewing his strength and sending him back to his prophetic mission. Similarly, Jesus' 40 days in the wilderness were not just a period of fasting, but a time of preparation to face the challenges of his earthly ministry. These stories remind us that isolation is not a punishment, but a phase of divine preparation. It teaches us to depend on God's strength, trust his timing, and embrace his plans wholeheartedly. This period of solitude allows us to cultivate faith, resilience, and clarity, equipping us to step into the mission that he has uniquely designed for us. If you are in a season of isolation, consider it an invitation from God to refocus, grow, and prepare. Use this time to seek him, reflect on his purpose, and trust that he is working within you for something extraordinary. Isolation is not the end. It is the beginning of a greater calling. The Bible is filled with examples of how God uses isolation as a transformative tool in the lives of his chosen ones. These moments are not mere coincidences, but intentional stages of preparation designed to mold and equip individuals for their divine missions. Through these periods of solitude, God shapes character, strengthens faith, and provides clarity of purpose. Moses is one of the most notable examples. Before becoming the leader who would free the Israelites from Egypt, he spent 40 years in the wilderness tending sheep. This period of isolation served as a time for God to refine Moses' heart, teach him humility, and prepare him for the monumental task ahead. It was in this solitude that Moses encountered the burning bush and received his calling. Another profound example is Jesus, who was led by the Spirit into the wilderness for 40 days before beginning his public ministry. During this time, he fasted and prayed, facing direct temptation from the enemy. This period of solitude wasn't just a test of his endurance, it was a necessary preparation for the mission he was about to undertake. It was here that Jesus demonstrated unwavering faith and reliance on God's word, setting the foundation for his ministry. Elijah also experienced transformative isolation. After a significant spiritual victory, he fled into the wilderness, feeling defeated and alone. In that solitude, God provided for his physical needs and spoke to him in a still small voice. This encounter renewed Elijah's strength and gave him the courage to continue his prophetic mission. C.S. Lewis often reflected on the power of isolation in his writings. He observed that solitude, though challenging, creates a space where individuals can hear God's voice more clearly. Lewis believed that these periods are essential for spiritual growth and for aligning one's life with God's will. These biblical stories remind us that isolation is not a sign of abandonment, but of divine preparation. It is in these quiet moments that God works most profoundly, equipping his chosen ones for tasks far beyond their understanding. If you are experiencing a season of solitude, take heart. Like Moses, Jesus, and Elijah, you are being prepared for something extraordinary. Trust the process and know that God is with you every step of the way. Solitude, while often seen as a burden, is one of the most profound tools God uses for spiritual growth. In moments of isolation, we are stripped of distractions and left to face ourselves and our relationship with God. This space of quiet introspection allows for transformation, where faith deepens, resilience strengthens, and our spiritual vision becomes clearer. C.S. Lewis frequently wrote about the importance of solitude in spiritual development. He believed that in a world full of noise and distractions, solitude provides the necessary environment for introspection and connection with the divine. In his works, Lewis highlighted that it is in these quiet moments that we confront our fears, address our weaknesses, and become more attuned to God's voice. For Lewis, solitude wasn't merely about being alone, it was about creating a sacred space where transformation could occur. The Bible offers numerous examples of how solitude fosters growth. David, before becoming king, spent significant time alone as a shepherd in the fields. During these solitary moments, he developed a deep relationship with God, composing psalms and learning to trust in his guidance. This foundation of faith prepared David to face Goliath with confidence and lead a nation with wisdom. Another powerful illustration is Jacob, who wrestled with an angel in solitude, emerging with a new identity as Israel. This pivotal moment marked a transformation in Jacob's character and purpose, signifying the power of solitude to bring clarity and renewal. Solitude also provides an opportunity to recalibrate our priorities and align our lives with God's will. It is a time to reflect on what truly matters, letting go of superficial concerns and embracing the eternal. In the stillness, we find strength and peace that surpasses understanding, as God meets us where we are and works within us. This process of growth in solitude is not always comfortable, but it is deeply rewarding. It is in these moments of quiet that God refines our character, prepares us for challenges, and equips us for His purpose. Solitude is not an obstacle to overcome, but a divine gift to embrace, a sacred period where transformation takes root. If you find yourself in a season of solitude, trust that God is using it to shape you into the person He has called you to be. Lean into the stillness, seek His presence, and allow Him to guide you towards spiritual maturity and clarity of purpose. Solitude is not a punishment, it is preparation. Isolation is not simply a state of being alone, it is often a clear indicator that God is preparing someone for a higher purpose. Those chosen by Him are set apart, called to walk paths that differ from the ordinary. This separation can feel lonely, but it is an intentional step in God's divine process to refine, equip, and align His chosen ones for their unique mission. The Bible provides powerful examples of individuals who experienced isolation as part of their preparation. Joseph, betrayed by his brothers and sold into slavery, endured years of solitude and imprisonment. During this time, God worked on his heart, teaching him wisdom, patience, and leadership. Eventually, Joseph rose to a position of great authority, saving Egypt and surrounding nations during a time of famine. His isolation was not a detour, but a necessary part of his journey to fulfill God's plan. Jeremiah, often referred to as the weeping prophet, also faced intense isolation. Rejected by his own people for delivering God's messages, he spent much of his life misunderstood and alone. Yet in his solitude, Jeremiah remained faithful, drawing strength from his relationship with God. This isolation allowed him to focus on his calling and carry out his prophetic mission with unwavering dedication. C.S. Lewis wrote about the connection between solitude and calling, emphasizing that those who are chosen for extraordinary purposes often experience separation from the world. In his view, this isolation is not a sign of failure or rejection, but a hallmark of a higher calling. It is in these moments of solitude that God sharpens the vision and fortifies the spirit of his chosen ones. Isolation also acts as a filter, separating what is essential from what is superfluous. It creates space for God to work deeply within us, shaping our character and preparing us for the challenges and responsibilities ahead. This process may feel uncomfortable, but it is a vital part of stepping into the destiny God has designed for us. If you are experiencing a season of isolation, consider it a divine sign that God is preparing you for something extraordinary. Though the road may seem lonely, remember that He is with you, guiding and equipping you for a mission that goes beyond what you can imagine. Embrace this time as a sacred opportunity for growth and preparation, trusting that God's plans for you are far greater than you can envision. Solitude, though often perceived as a burden, holds extraordinary power to transform us from within. Far from being a punishment, it is a tool God uses to refine our character, deepen our faith, and prepare us for the greater purpose He has designed for our lives. In the stillness of isolation, we are given the opportunity to confront our weaknesses, rediscover our strengths, and align ourselves with God's divine plan. One of the most profound aspects of solitude is its ability to reveal our dependence on God. When the distractions and noise of the world fade away, we are left with a space where we can fully turn to Him. This process can be uncomfortable, as it forces us to face our fears and doubts. However, it is in this vulnerability that God's presence becomes most evident, offering comfort, strength, and clarity. C.S. Lewis often explored the transformative power of solitude in his writings. He described how these moments of isolation create the perfect environment for spiritual growth. In his view, solitude strips away the superficial and allows us to hear God's voice more clearly. Lewis believed that these periods, though challenging, are essential for refining our character and strengthening our reliance on God. The Bible offers countless examples of how solitude leads to transformation. Jacob wrestled with an angel alone through the night, emerging with a new identity and a renewed purpose as Israel. David, while tending sheep in solitude, cultivated the faith and courage that later enabled him to face Goliath and become a great king. Even Jesus, during his 40 days in the wilderness, was prepared for his ministry through solitude, prayer, and fasting. Solitude also acts as a space for renewal. It allows us to rest in God's presence, recalibrate our priorities, and gain a clearer understanding of our mission. In the quiet, we find the strength to overcome life's challenges and the peace that surpasses all understanding. Ultimately, the power of solitude lies in its ability to transform us from the inside out. It is a sacred time where God refines our hearts, strengthens our spirits, and equips us for the greater purpose He has in store. Embrace these moments of quiet as opportunities for growth, trusting that God is at work, shaping you into the person He has called you to be. Solitude is not a setback. It is a preparation for greatness. If this message has inspired you to see solitude from a new perspective, take a moment to like this video. Your support not only helps this content reach more people, but also encourages others to explore how God works through their challenges. In the comments, share your experience with solitude, or how you've seen God move in your life during those times. Your story could be the encouragement someone else needs to embrace their own season of growth and purpose. C.S. Lewis, renowned for his profound spiritual insights, offers a unique perspective on the role of solitude in the lives of God's chosen ones. For Lewis, solitude is not a punishment or a misstep, but a divine tool that prepares individuals for extraordinary purposes. He believed that those called by God are often set apart, and their moments of isolation serve as critical periods for reflection, growth, and alignment with God's will. In his writings, Lewis emphasized that solitude provides the environment necessary for transformation. In the noise and busyness of daily life, it's easy to lose sight of God's voice. However, in solitude, the distractions fade, and God's presence becomes more evident. In works like The Problem of Pain, Lewis argued that God uses challenges, including isolation, to draw us closer to Him. These moments are opportunities to confront our weaknesses and find strength in His grace. Lewis also explored how solitude is often a hallmark of great callings. In the Chronicles of Narnia and the Screwtape Letters, he portrayed characters who, when isolated, experienced significant growth and preparation for greater tasks. This reflects his belief that those destined for unique missions often feel disconnected from the world because their journey is distinct. Solitude, in this context, is not a sign of rejection, but of being chosen for something higher. The Bible echoes this perspective with numerous examples of transformative solitude. Moses encountered God in the burning bush while alone in the wilderness. Elijah heard God's voice as a gentle whisper during his time of despair and isolation. Even Jesus, before beginning his ministry, spent 40 days in the wilderness, fasting and resisting temptation, preparing himself for his divine mission. For Lewis, these periods of solitude were not accidental, but intentional acts of preparation. He believed that God uses isolation to sharpen our vision, deepen our faith, and equip us for leadership. Solitude creates a space where the noise of the world fades, allowing us to hear God's call clearly and to be molded for His purpose. Ultimately, Lewis's perspective invites us to view solitude not as something to fear, but as a sacred opportunity. It's a time when God works most deeply in our hearts, shaping us for the extraordinary purposes He has planned. By embracing these moments, we discover that solitude is not a barrier, but a bridge to fulfilling God's divine call for our lives. Solitude, though it may feel endless at times, is never permanent for those who are chosen by God. Instead, it serves as a transitional phase designed to refine and prepare us for the purpose God has planned. In this space, God works deeply in our hearts, stripping away distractions and aligning us with His divine will. It is not an end point, but a crucial step towards something far greater. The Bible illustrates this truth through powerful stories of individuals who experienced solitude as part of their preparation. Joseph, for example, endured years of isolation as a slave and prisoner before rising to become a leader in Egypt. During his time in confinement, God developed Joseph's wisdom, patience, and resilience, preparing him to save many lives during a famine. His isolation was not a detour, but an essential part of his journey. Elijah offers another compelling example. After a spiritual triumph against the prophets of Baal, he fled into the wilderness, overwhelmed and discouraged. In his solitude, God met him not with thunder or fire, but with a gentle whisper, providing the strength and clarity Elijah needed to continue his prophetic mission. This period of isolation was pivotal in reaffirming his purpose and renewing his faith. C.S. Lewis viewed solitude as a preparatory phase where God works to refine our character and clarify our mission. In his writings, he emphasized that these moments of stillness, though challenging, are necessary for growth. They filter out distractions and create space for God to align us with his plans. Lewis believed that relationships and connections would come at the right time, but only after the work of solitude had fulfilled its purpose. It's vital to remember that solitude is not a punishment or a permanent state. God uses these moments to teach us patience, build our faith, and prepare us for the blessings and responsibilities to come. When the time is right, he places the right people and opportunities in our lives, perfectly aligned with his purpose. If you are in a season of solitude, trust that God is at work. While it may feel difficult now, this period is laying the foundation for something extraordinary. Solitude is not wasted time. It is divine investment. Embrace this phase, knowing that God's plans are always greater than what we can see or imagine. Your isolation is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a greater calling. Solitude, while a powerful tool for growth, often brings with it challenges and temptations that test our faith and resilience. These trials are not signs of failure, but opportunities for refinement, as God uses them to strengthen our character and deepen our trust in him. Facing these challenges with faith and determination can transform moments of weakness into milestones of spiritual victory. One of the most common struggles during solitude is the sense of abandonment or unworthiness. In these moments, doubts creep in, whispering that we are forgotten or that our efforts are in vain. The Bible reminds us, however, that such moments are not indications of God's absence, but invitations to lean deeper into his presence. Jesus himself experienced this during his 40 days in the wilderness. Confronted by Satan's temptations, he relied on the truth of God's word to resist and emerge stronger. His victory in solitude laid the foundation for his ministry. C.S. Lewis often explored the theme of temptation in isolation. In the Screwtape Letters, he illustrates how the enemy uses our moments of vulnerability to sow fear, discouragement, and distraction. Yet Lewis also emphasized that these struggles can be overcome through prayer, perseverance, and reliance on God. Solitude becomes a battlefield where spiritual strength is tested and fortified. Another significant challenge is the temptation to fill the void with superficial distractions. Whether it's seeking temporary comfort or numbing ourselves to the silence, these diversions often prevent us from addressing the deeper work God is doing. Overcoming this requires intentionality, choosing to face the discomfort and allowing God to meet us in the stillness. Each trial faced during solitude is an opportunity for growth. They teach us to trust God more fully, to recognize his presence even in silence, and to develop a resilience that will serve us in future challenges. These moments are not wasted. They are the refining fires that prepare us for the purpose God has placed on our lives. When you find yourself struggling in solitude, remember that you are not alone. God is with you, guiding and strengthening you through every challenge. These trials are shaping you into the person he has called you to be. Embrace them with faith, knowing that victory is not only possible but promised to those who trust in him. Solitude is not just a test, it is a place where transformation begins. Leadership often comes hand in hand with solitude. Those called to guide and inspire others frequently find themselves walking a path less traveled, bearing responsibilities that others may not fully understand. This isolation, however, is not a burden but a divine preparation for the unique role God has assigned. It is in the quiet moments of solitude that leaders are shaped, their vision sharpened, and their resilience strengthened. The Bible offers numerous examples of how solitude is a precursor to effective leadership. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before being called to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. During this time, God cultivated patience, humility, and dependence in Moses, preparing him to face Pharaoh and guide a nation through years of trials. Similarly, David, before ascending to the throne, experienced years of isolation while fleeing from King Saul. These periods of solitude allowed David to deepen his trust in God and develop the character necessary to rule as a king after God's own heart. C.S. Lewis recognized the link between solitude and leadership. He often wrote about how great callings require a season of separation from the world. According to Lewis, those destined to lead are frequently misunderstood or set apart because their journey is unique. This isolation, though challenging, provides the opportunity to connect deeply with God, gain clarity of purpose, and prepare for the responsibility of leadership. Solitude also offers leaders the chance to reflect and recalibrate. In the absence of distractions, they can seek God's guidance, evaluate their priorities, and make decisions that align with His will. It is in these moments of stillness that leaders find the strength and wisdom to navigate the complexities of their role. Ultimately, solitude is not an obstacle to leadership, but a foundation for it. It equips leaders with the fortitude to face challenges, the humility to serve, and the vision to inspire others. The path of leadership may be lonely at times, but it is through these moments of isolation that God prepares His chosen to leave a lasting legacy. If you are a leader experiencing solitude, take heart. God is at work in your life, using this time to refine and equip you for the tasks ahead. Embrace this season as a divine opportunity, trusting that the lessons learned in solitude will strengthen your ability to lead and impact those around you. Leadership through solitude is not just about guiding others, it's about being transformed into the leader God has called you to be. Solitude, while challenging, can be one of the most transformative experiences in a believer's life. It invites us to pause, reflect, and reconnect with God in ways that are often impossible amidst the noise of daily life. These moments of quiet are not without purpose. They are opportunities for growth, renewal, and preparation for what lies ahead. C.S. Lewis described solitude as a sacred space where distractions fall away, allowing us to hear God's voice with greater clarity. It is in these moments that we are reminded of His constant presence, even when we feel most alone. Reflecting on this truth can shift our perspective, helping us see solitude not as a burden, but as an invitation to deepen our faith and trust in God's plan. Remember, solitude is not forever. It is a season of preparation. Each challenge faced during this time serves to strengthen your character and align your heart with God's purpose. Instead of resisting these moments, embrace them as opportunities to grow closer to Him. Take time to seek His guidance, meditate on His word, and allow His presence to bring peace to your spirit. As you reflect, ask yourself, how is God working in your life through this season of solitude? What areas is He refining, and how can you lean into His purpose? By approaching these moments with faith and openness, you position yourself to emerge stronger, wiser, and more aligned with the mission He has for you. Solitude is not the end of the story. It is a powerful chapter in your journey. Trust that God is using this time to mold you into the person He has called you to be. Embrace the process and let it prepare you for the extraordinary things He has planned. If this message has resonated with you and encouraged you to see solitude through a new lens, take a moment to subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. By doing so, you'll stay connected to weekly reflections, teachings, and insights that can inspire and strengthen your faith. Together, we'll explore how to embrace God's plan, even in life's most challenging moments. Additionally, share your thoughts and experiences in the comments. How has God worked in your life during seasons of solitude? Your testimony could uplift and encourage someone who may be navigating a similar journey. Join this growing community of believers as we support one another in faith and purpose. Solitude is not the conclusion of your story. It's the foundation for something far greater. Every moment of isolation, every challenge you face, is part of God's divine preparation. Though the path may feel lonely at times, you are never truly alone. God walks with you, molding your heart, strengthening your faith, and preparing you for the extraordinary purpose He has set before you. Embrace these moments with confidence and trust in His plan. Allow God to work in your life even in the quietest and most challenging times, and when you look back, you'll see how these periods of solitude were instrumental in shaping you into the person you were meant to be. Remember, God's purpose for your life is greater than anything you can imagine. Trust Him and step forward with hope and faith.